My 18-year-old daughter was about to leave home for 4 months, and if you're a parent, you can relate. I wanted things to go really well for her. I'd spent weeks preparing and helping her getting things into place so this trip could go well. But as hard as we try, there are so many things in life beyond our control. I'm going to share the story of how our last night at home together took a painful twist, but the clarity and beauty that came out of that. As I share the story, I'll be studying a master artist's work. Now, this is an artist I've never connected with before. I really didn't like his work, but through this experience, I came to connect with one painting in particular. And toward the end, I'll be sharing one of his quotes and how it really resonated with me through this experience. But first, welcome to Art by Charity. I'm Charity Lee Jennings, a Canadian artist living in Asia, and I'm here to help you see the world through artists' eyes. For me, engaging with the world around me and connecting with others through art is the most meaningful way to live. As I share my art and the stories behind it, I want to show you how art can bring more fulfillment to your life, too. So I'm an artist who loves to plan, schedule, and pay attention to detail, and I was doing just that as we led up to my daughter's big trip. I was doing everything I could to make sure it went well. It was her first international flight by herself, so we were all feeling a little bit jittery, and I had a mix of emotions. Sadness at the thought of spending so much time apart, separated from my daughter. Concern for how Brian and I would do being here with no kids after 23 years of raising kids. And excitement for my daughter to have this amazing adventure and to step into a new independent stage of her life. For me, raising kids has been such a joy and a wonder. It's also helped me to find my place in a world where I often felt like I didn't belong, much like my art practice has. But even before my own kids were born, I had a sister who was 10 years younger than me. So through that experience, I got to be the little mom. I got to take care of her. We shared a room even, and I would change her diapers and put her to bed. And I just loved having a little sister, and I'll never forget that first day going to see her in the hospital and that tiny little newborn baby. And to me, I just realized the most amazing thing in the world was a newborn baby. So it wasn't that surprising that when I got married at 22, not long after that, I wanted to start my own family. Now, fast forward 23 years, we've had many great experiences as a family, but my kids have grown up and they don't need me in the same way as they used to, and that fulfilling part of my life has changed so much. It's taken a new shape. And I've really been processing this as my daughter turned 18. But when it really hit me was the night before she left. We'd been out at the mall getting the last few things for her trip. I was helping her get packed up, and suddenly I started feeling this pain in my back, and I needed to go lay down. I thought it was just going to be a mild pain and maybe get me down for an hour or so. But the pain really started to increase and to move to my stomach too. And then I was having intense pain and intense nausea. And it just seemed so quickly that I went from the one helping my daughter to the one in need of help. I really felt the irony here, just reaching this point where my youngest child had turned 18. She's about to go on this big trip. And leading up from all these years of me being the one taking care of my family to suddenly I was the one in need. I needed to get to the emergency room. But there were two problems. One, we live on a small island that doesn't have a great hospital. So in order to get to good medical care, I had to take a ferry to get to Singapore. And the other problem, we were already planning to go to Singapore in the morning to take our daughter Abby to the airport. My vision for how the lead up to her trip was going to go didn't happen at all. Not only did we let go of the dream of having one last special night at home with our daughter, we left the country without her on her last night at home. Thankfully, we had some friends here who could help her out, but that didn't change the fact the plan wasn't coming together at all. So instead of me helping Abby pack her suitcase, it was her who was helping me. She got me a long sleeve shirt for the ferry because they put the air conditioning on so strong, it's really cold in there. She filled my water bottle, and she always has a collection of hair elastics around her wrist. She took off that whole collection and handed them to me so that I would have something to put my hair up with. And she also said a prayer for me. And as we drove away, she kept packing. I didn't get to be here to make her last night special. It was memorable, but not special. I didn't even get to be with her on her last night here. But I did see a new and independent side of my daughter as she finished up her packing, closed up the house the next day, and our friends brought her to Singapore. But as I was leaving home, there was a single rose in a jar on the kitchen table. So I was in so much pain. Just getting into the car was excruciating. All my energy went to coping with the pain. And I thought, if I can just get to the ferry terminal. There are multiple ferries leaving every day. If we can just get there, we'll be on a ferry in no time. But we arrived just as the second last ferry of the day was leaving, and there was an hour-and-a-half wait until the next ferry. So as I sat on the ferry, just enduring the pain, just waiting to get to Singapore, I realized the pains were surprisingly like labor pains. My stomach was cramping in a way that felt really similar to being in labor. If you've ever had a baby, I'm sure you can imagine. But having that realization also helped me connect with some of the pain management tips that I had learned while I was pregnant. And it made me think about having a focal point. Like when I was pregnant with my first, I had a little picture of the ultrasound, and somehow we got a pretty clear picture of him in the ultrasound that showed like the whole silhouette of the baby. So I had that as my focal point during my labor, and it really helped. So what came to mind was the single rose on our dining room table. I'd received it on Mother's Day. I'd been at church, and I was very reflective as my daughter had turned 18 just 2 weeks before, and I was thinking about what it means to be a mother at this stage in life. At the end of the service, they called all the moms up to the front. We all lined up, and then the little kids came rushing down the aisle, each one holding a single rose, and it was just the cutest sight. And as they came forward, all the kids went towards their mother and handed them the rose, and it was really adorable. All the moms around me were receiving roses, and then I realized I don't have a young kid in this crowd. There's no one coming to give me a rose. But my friend's daughter came and she gave me a rose, and it was just so sweet. So as I was making the way on the ferry, and literally I was just trying to get through every 30-second interval of this, I just thought, if I can get through the next 30 seconds, at least some time has passed. And I was thinking of this rose, thinking of my daughter and how much beauty she's added to my life. And I'm not the only one who found beauty in pain. I'm going to tell you how being stuck at home after this whole visit to the hospital, doctor's orders, led to a deep connection with a master painting. By the time Singapore was in sight, I was barely conscious because of the pain. But having that focal point helped me so much. And as I think back, it brought so much clarity into how special those last few weeks with my daughter at home were. So leading up to Abby's departure, Brian and I had decided we're going to embrace this 4-month period. We're going to embrace this time of being empty nesters, getting a feel for what it's like before we have the full experience of having an empty nest, because Abby is coming back in 4 months. So we had some travel plans in the works. We decided just a few days after Abby left, we would be out on a smaller island, and we were looking forward to it. But doctor's orders changed everything. When I finally got to ER, I learned that I'd had a kidney stone, dehydration, and I was dealing with an infection. So all that meant I needed to just stay home and rest. Hello? Hello? The rose that had been sitting on the table was dead now, but I really wanted to find a way to represent that hope that it brought to me. So this took me to other masters' works of roses, and this one painting really stood out to me. It's called Roses in a Champagne Glass. And it was painted by Édouard Manet in 1882. He was a French modernist painter. And when I look at this painting, there's a simplicity and a vibrancy here that really speaks to me. I wanted to learn a bit more about the story behind this painting, and I discovered that Manet painted it during the final portion of his life when he was studio bound. He was stuck at home in his studio. He couldn't be outdoors painting anymore. He was quite ill and he was in the final days of his life. And perhaps that's why this painting spoke to me so much. Manet spent his life developing his skill as an artist and pursuing his dream of being an artist. He pushed the limits, experimenting with color, building upon the foundation of classical drawing and painting. Studying Manet's ability to capture this subject seemingly so effortlessly and to portray beauty in the midst of his suffering gave me a way to express all that I'd been processing. I want to share this quote by Édouard Manet. Everything is mere appearance, the pleasures of a passing hour, a midsummer night's dream, only painting, the reflection of a reflection, but the reflection, too, of eternity, can record some of the glitter of this mirage. Édouard Manet. This quote really speaks to me. As we were leading up to Abby's departure, I had envisioned her last night here and our trip to Singapore so many times that it already seemed like reality to me. But as Manet says, everything is mere appearance. So often things in life don't go the way we expect. And I often turn to art when life feels out of control. It feels so therapeutic to be working on a painting or a drawing and gives me the opportunity to contemplate my life and what I'm learning through the struggles. In this case, it was being confronted with the reality that life doesn't go the way we expect. I missed out on my last night at home with my daughter. But in the midst of coping with pain, a single, beautiful Mother's Day rose brought so much clarity on the beauty in my life and all that I have to live for. I hope it helped do the same for you. Hey, Mocha, come here. Come here. Hello. Hello. If you enjoyed this story, I invite you to watch me study a painting that feels like home and relive memories of my time with my kids in China. Thank you so much for joining me today.